Hi, it's Kevin May from PhocusWire. We are here for In the Big Chair Live, which is our live version of our In the Big Chair series that we normally run on PhocusWire.com. We talk to leaders of different organisations all around the industry, and it's your turn. Sorry about the chair; it's perhaps not as big as some would expect it to be.
That's great.
You're the CEO of Cornerstone Information Systems. You've been doing that for 26 years.
I have.
Give us your take, Matt, on the evolution of both the business over those 26 years and the industry in which it's operated in.
So the business and the travel industry. Yeah. So we really have evolved with the travel industry. I mean, we started back in 1992, which seems probably at this point many lifetimes ago. I can't count how many, but many. I mean, but we essentially started, sort of with the same premise that we have today, which is to automate the process of reservations, and specifically air reservations as they were made on GDS back in those days. And the whole idea was to provide a more automated way of acquiring a reservation, processing a reservation, and providing a more quality outcome, because back in those days, it was people that were making reservations. And so now you fast forward, probably to my second lifetime, which is at the beginning of 2000 or so, and you have the entrance of Expedia and more automated and more the whole transition from the travel agency making, reservations to now you have, people, travelers becoming the travel agent, if you will.
Yeah.
And that, fundamentally then changed what we were trying to do. Now it became about automating workflow. And really automating workflow to the end that no one had to touch it. No one could touch it, because now the costs, that were buried inside of people working manually reservations had gone up tremendously, because there were no commissions.
Yeah.
So all of that fundamentally changed what the purpose of automation became. And now we're entering probably now into my third lifetime here, which is now more intelligent automation.
Okay.
I mean, it's sort of like my take on AI. It's automated intelligence.
So you would say there's been three distinct phases, but we're probably only at the beginning of the third phase, would you say?
Probably, and there's still a lot of garbage to pick up on the, at least on the second one too, because there's still.
Talk to us about the garbage. What do you mean?
So so even today there are processes within travel that are sloppy and not easy to manage, and that comes down to the data. And the quality of data that comes through the entire workflow, and how that's managed is going to be so critical, to the future, to this third lifetime, which is that of automated intelligence or artificial intelligence and machine learning. Because if you don't have your facts right, if your data isn't correct, to the extent that machines understand it, because we're cognitive beings. We can look at something that's not quite right and say, I know what that meant.
Yeah.
I know that number is a little bit off, but I'll go with that, and I can make a phone call and maybe have them correct. I mean, what's a machine to do?
Yeah. Would you say then, I sense yes, that the quality of the data at the moment is fairly poor?
It's good for people.
Right.
Not so good for the
machines.
Not so good for the machine.
What do you need to do, whether it's your organization or your company, or whether it's the industry as a whole, to improve the quality of the data, and how long will that take?
You have to have an outcome in mind, first of all, on what you're trying to do. And so, when I start looking at some of the opportunities to really drive a more seamless process, a more productive process of reservations, I think of service. I think of customer service, and I think of, one of the things that everyone sort of complains about this industry from time to time is the service levels that people receive. That is a great place for AI and machine learning to start playing. A lot of people have sort of jumped ahead and once again, tried to feed that to the consumer, to the traveler.
Right.
But why don't you go back a couple of steps? Why don't you go back into the call center, and why don't you apply artificial intelligence and machine learning there, where really now you can add a bigger capacity, a bigger opportunity perhaps to drive those service levels that then create better traction with consumers coming back to those brands. Okay. So if you can provide better service, maybe they wouldn't be searching over and over and over where to get their next holiday or where to book their next trip.
Right. So the evolution we talked about. I mean, what's been the evolution of the business in terms of the product, the balance of it? How has that changed over the years, and how have you had to kind of rethink the way the business is structured?
Yeah. You know, I think products is the key word, Kevin, because when you think about products, you think about nowadays you think about product management, and you think about how we are developing products. I would say that we've done a good job in developing a platform. A platform of functionality that allows us to build certain interactions for our customers, and we've got lots and lots of customers coming through our systems and platforms. Over $50 billion in travel transactions getting
you got that bit on your website with all those different factoids, and the numbers are mind blowing.
And things like that. And I would say that there's products within that that processing, and those products themselves have been developed in collaboration many times with our customers. Okay, and those products are really the definition of a solution that gets identified and a predictable outcome that gets satisfied on a repeatable basis. Okay, and today in travel, when we think about, I think we still think about platforms a lot. Okay, and we think about just generally, automation, but we don't think about productizing certain aspects of what, maybe a travel management company does or an OTA does, and that's starting to happen. And the reason it's starting to happen is that I'm starting to talk to less the operations people within our customers, and I'm talking to product management.
Okay.
And this is a phenomenon that's happened here for probably the past, 3 to 5 years, but even more now that, more and more of my customers are actually product managers. In other words, they take our product, our platform, if you will, and then they want to have a product conversation.
They think differently, though.
They do think different. They think they think about things like, is anybody going to use this? Is this?
Oh, no, not that.
Yeah,
not that difficult question.
Where you don't believe the things that sometimes you end up doing that are just like, we got to fix that. That person over there complained about this, and we got to throw in a couple of 500 man hours at that.
Right.
And then, somebody else over there came up with sort of the same thing, but we're going to throw another 500 at that one too. And it's the same thing. Okay. It's sort of the same, there's a general theme to maybe some of those problems, and it can be, and those problems that, that are real to those individuals. But in totality, the product management function is to really understand the amalgamation of all those use cases, all those user stories, and create a product that satisfies all of them. Okay. And that's changing. That's a mindset that, more of our customers are having now. And that's driven us, to become more of a product management organization.
And in those 26 years, I mean, you started out, as you said, with very much about flight bookings. At the center of that still is the GDS sector.
Not as much. But
not as much, but it still has an important role. I mean, how do you sense that's evolving now? Because all three of them are going through this, or claim to be going through this.
The speed of weight loss.
Right.
At times. But then at other times, I mean, it has moments of brilliance where you
tell us one of their moments of brilliance.
A moment of brilliance, in the world of, let's call them legacy systems and legacy processes, is the ability to think on a broader basis about APIs than just a particular function within an organization. So a moment of brilliance becomes when a concept such as an NDC concept, and one that's evolving now, from a standard to some practical applications of it, all of a sudden, start bumping up against, the operational side of how things really work. And then you start thinking about, how do I need to change my platform or my product so that it better interfaces with other workflow and other systems? Okay, those kind of conclusions where you're saying, well, it looks like I'm going to have to break with my economic model or my business model in order to extend it. I'm now going to have to interface and integrate, with other providers in order to enable what I have to continue to exist and process in a different way. And I think that's happening a lot with the GDSs, that they're sort of realizing that, yes, they can become certified, they can become NDC proponents and even be NDC, capable, but they're going to have to change their business models. But they also have a great opportunity to potentially extend, a bit and discover new models,
Right,
you know,
and
from APIs.
changing business models, is, as many people know, is not easy. So
It's not so easy.
Right. So you've been a startup dragon here at these events for
I have.
quite a few years, and you're very vocal about it. I mean, and you're involved in the Run Up Labs thing.
Yep.
And what kind of exasperates you about some of the new stuff that you've seen trekking through these halls over the years?
You know, I think sometimes you look at some of these startups and you see well-founded frustrations.
Right.
You know, with how travel works.
Yep.
And that's great because, you know, you got to start somewhere. I mean, you know, sometimes being an entrepreneur, you know, you start with a spark of anger and you say, well, you know, if this has happened to me, it must be happening to everyone.
Yep.
And it's not always the case, you know, and sometimes you solve a real problem that is missing components of the recipe. Okay, and while you might have a very, very nice ingredient to a total problem, it has to be combined with the rest of the meal. But this is an opportunity now that I think, you know, when I look at some of these very feature-centric and very specifically centric, you know, problems that, you know, entrepreneurs are solving and then calling themselves a company, is that they now have, you know, somewhat of an opportunity to integrate and become a broader set of functionality if they're able to get those collaborations. And lots of the times that's what they're working on when you talk to them specifically. They're great at identifying the problem and the solution, but then how do you get adoption?
Right.
You know, and that means partnering. Unless you want to broaden your the problems that you're addressing, and then all of a sudden you've probably lost the attention of your investors.
Okay, right. So some maybe not quick fire questions, depends how expansive you are on your answers. So some other types of questions now, which we do in our big chairs.
Okay.
What would you say are the gaps in your experience and knowledge of the industry?
You know, I don't understand the supplier side of it as much as I'd like to. But I'm working really hard on that because I tend to be the recipient of a transaction that's already been created and one now that I have to process and value add the transaction and value add the data and information out of it. So really understanding the other side of the coin, which is, you know, what can I do to help suppliers and what are their challenges? And that's why I come to Phocuswright, frankly, because this is you get more of a supplier centric, you know, kind of perspective, hotels, airlines here, and how they're interfacing with, you know, the consumer and through the technologies that are, you know, that are at the battleground and at the launch.
That's true. Okay. So you're explaining the industry to a new employee. Complete the sentence. Beware of the
middleman.
Okay. Why?
Because they tend to overrepresent their value.
Okay. Do you think the middlemen would agree with you?
Huh?
Would they agree with you?
Well, their job is to represent their value as a facilitator.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you woke up and had 2,000 unread emails and were only allowed to answer 300 of them, how would you choose which ones to answer?
I would probably start with the ones from my family.
Okay. That's the right answer, isn't it? Okay. How do you define success and how do you measure up to your own definition?
You know, I define success by time well spent.
Okay.
And here I am. So yeah, time is the one thing that you know, that we don't know how much we're given of. So I spend quite a bit of time doing the things I like to do and the things that I feel are the most productive for me to do, and I hope that's my contribution, which is a well-focused life with well-focused time.
Okay. I hope you wouldn't get 300 emails from the family. That'd be a lot.
I hope, no, I don't. I don't get 300 emails, period.
Wow. You're very lucky. Right. What's the one mistake in the industry you see people making more than anything else?
You know, and this is not just this industry, but it's really assumptions. And the assumptions that people make, and especially in business and in startups, where they look at something and they say, well, you know, we'll figure that out later, or I assume that you know, that the rest of the market will follow.
Okay.
You know, if we can get these people to follow, I assume the rest of the market will follow. Assumptions are the bane of most people's existence.
That's a great phrase. We're not writing your obituary or an epitaph.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, but how do you want to be remembered as a leader in your company?
I think as one that took the time to to organize a hell of a good experience for the people that work for me.
Okay, Mat Orrego, thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.